Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show, Beautifully Bruised in the CPS show. I am your host, Latrika Jones, and I'm so glad you tuned in with us today. It's so much that I just want to share that I do believe that when I was going through my CPS encounter, it's something that even from that point of what was going on with the CPS case up until this day, and I want to say, my God, it's about 5 or 6, 7 years later, and this still, I can tell, left a bad taste in my son's mouth about some of the things that he experienced with CPS. And I just want to, I think that's important to share, because sometimes people be like, okay, well, they're with their foster mom, or they're in good hands, or I don't have to worry about them, or whatever the case may be. I just want you to know that sometimes that it can have a more lasting effect on your children than what the eyes can see. So before any further ado, before we get into the show, I just want to give thanks to my Lord and Savior, because without God, I am absolutely nothing, but with Him, I am everything. And I do know that He gives me the strength to get through everything, from being a mom to working in the ministry, to be able to do the show, and just to show up, to be present in the moment and whatever that may look like. So I just give Him the glory and all the honor, because I know, again, without Him, I'm absolutely nothing, but with Him, I'm everything. So with that being said, we are going to dive right into the show today. Our scheduled guest that was supposed to arrive was not able to make it, but again, we are going to still go forth because we still have a lot to share with you, and I do believe it'll be helpful to you and bless you along your journey as well. And like I was mentioning earlier, I just noticed some of the things with my son that affected him with CPS, and not just a physical thing. It's also with, I noticed that, he told me, I noticed like sometimes where, he'll share with me something might occur and it has nothing to do with CPS, but he'll say, Mom, I hope CPS doesn't try to separate me or take me away from the family again, and it could just come out of nowhere. It could be somebody that's in the family that have asked him to come stay over, or if it's something that I have to do or go out of town, or someone that come about in our lives, that is the very first thing I notice he'll say. Why would they want to separate me from my family? Why would they want to, divide me from my family? And I will have to share with him, son, that just because this is occurring, that doesn't mean that, CPS is going to take you away. So obviously this is a effect of him being traumatized. This is triggering him, even in his classes. Sometimes I know his teachers share with me that if he has to go to a different room for testing, or they change the way, things that they were doing in class, or they might be just separating the kids in different rooms. Like it seems to me that the teachers have to constantly reassure him that it's okay. This is only temporarily. We might be taking a benchmark test. I'm here in Texas, and we have most states and schools have SAT tests and benchmark tests, or whatever yours may be. That sometimes it may change up the setup during class. They might have to go to a different room for a test or whatever event or something they have taken place. But I noticed with my child, along with him dealing with, he's been tested as being autistic, and autism is so wide on the spectrum. It's so many different. Anybody that has a child that's artistic, or know of someone, or even like teachers, someone working in the educational system, or autism is on a spectrum. So it can vary in many different shades and colors. Some may be severe, some may not be as severe. So again, that's why it's a wide variety, and why it's, known to be, it's not just one particular way autism can look. It's many different looks of autism. So, but with that being said, already, with, dealing with a child that has been tested to be autistic, and please do not get me wrong, that does not mean just because your child is autistic that they are slow, they can't comprehend, or they're behind. If you want to know my honest truth, I think that they're smarter than the average person, because the way they process information is totally different. Some things I noticed my son, even in math, I noticed that certain things he can catch on quickly. It doesn't take long. Where for me, for example, I may have to study. But I noticed that when children are artistic, they not only process differently, but some way they can kind of be seen as, I heard of them being as a genius, being eligible, for the gifted and talented. So please do not confine them just with that title, because they have so much more to offer than what meets the eye. And again, I noticed that they are able to do things that the normal person can't do. So I can see them being seen as geniuses, or being considered the gifted and talented, because they process differently, but they think differently, and it might be greater in some areas if you really think about it. But again, due to they normally process differently, like my son, sometimes it's certain ways you have to interact and deal with them. And like I said, with my son now, after CPS, thank God, years ago, but you can still see some of the effects of it. Like I say, if something changes in our house, because they're normally easily triggered, whether it's due to sensories or colors or smells or whatever the case may be, it completely changes how they do things and see things. So like I say, just after that experience with CPS, I know even if it's nothing dealing with CPS, he is still quick to come to me and say, I don't want CPS to take me away. I don't want to be separated or divided, with my family. So I would have to always come back and, interact with him and say, no one is taking you away from me. You're home, you're safe. I love you, and I'm going to do whatever I take, like I did back then, to make sure you're back home. Guess what? Now I thank God for knowledge and wisdom, because I know even more, thank God, because I survived CPS. I survived. I went through that. And again, not only did I learn what the system is like, I learned now what it takes to endure what they take you through. You sometimes you might not know something until you're walking through that thing. Somebody can tell you something all day long, but until you personally experience that for yourself, it's a whole new, excuse me, it's a whole new set of eyes, that you have, and hopefully when you know better, you'll do better. So I do believe, again, transparency transforms. Here I am today. If hope, unfortunately, you don't have to encounter CPS, but if you are, since I've been doing this show, I've had people to call me who you would never expect, that if not them, their family has been involved in a CPS case. And they tell me, Trika, I don't know what to do. I want to help. I don't know how to help. I don't know if I should even get involved. And of course, since I've been through it before, and if they have asked them to be say, for example, if their child was removed and they need a parent to step in, they'll tell me, I don't know what to do. And my advice, you would rather, if you can, and pray for if you see that you can't do it, do everything within your power to get that child. Because I would not strongly recommend no child to have to go into their foster care system. And please don't get me wrong. I am not saying that all foster parents are bad, because they're not. I personally know some people that have been foster parents, and I do believe they have been good foster parents, but that is not always the case. It does seem like to me, and again, it would take attorney Vince, a wise legal counsel who fights CPS and knows CPS laws, that will give you more information about how that works. But just from my personal experience, I am not an attorney. I'm only sharing my story with you because I have been a victim to CPS for nearly a year, really longer than that. And with that being said, through my personal experience, I was able to learn and gain knowledge of who CPS is and some of the tricks and games and plots and schemes and operations that they work under. Okay. So, like I'm saying, I told this person who I think highly of, I would have never thought she was dealing with a CPS case. This is someone that's highly intelligent, that have raised her kids, that have now retired and still helping out, and I thank God for this platform, because again, back in the day, I would have never shared my story. You feel shame. You feel embarrassed. You don't want people to know. But I do believe God had taken me through my story to be able to help others. Like my book I've written, Beautifully Bruised, Crushed for Christ. What that means, the book title means, it doesn't mean that marks are beautiful. Absolutely not. The book, the title Beautifully Bruised means that God was able to trust me to take me through a corrupt, dark system that literally tried to crush me in two. I lost everything I had, from my house to my degree to my assets, and most importantly, my son during that transition. But even through all that, when everything is taken away from you, everything you love, you care about, and you still get up and move on with your life, and you still praise God when you feel empty, lost, and confused. God told me, if you trust me, what the devil meant for evil, I assure you that I will turn it for the good. And even through that, it was amazing how I even had my church to say, hey, come out and speak to these ladies that need someone to encourage them. And I said to myself, how in the world am I going to encourage somebody else when I need somebody to encourage me right now? But you know what? Through those tests, through those times, that's when your character is developed. It is. It's when your character is developed. Even though you might feel weak and you feel hurt and you feel like, my God, why so much pain? Why am I going through this? But God will use that pain that you're experiencing and turn it into power. Look at me today. I never would thought I would be here in front of you today saying, hey, don't give up on your children. What better way to share with you my story other than a person that has been in the same shoes you've been in, that you've walked in? I've not only been in it, but I overcame it. And so much so, God told me, write a book about what you've been through. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Because I don't want nobody to know that. Not that. But I felt in my spirit, God said, yeah, but that's what I'm going to use. Because that's what I want people to read. That's what I want people to look to and listen to when they in their darkest moments and those darkest nights when, you've been through your hearings, you met with your caseworkers, you went on your visitations, taken your drug test. I have never done drugs in my entire life. Okay. And I don't look down on people that do. I can't tell you what to do with your life. I can just tell you, for me, that wasn't my outlet. My outlet is prayer. My outlet is, self-care, doing things that I enjoy, whether if it's a movie or a Netflix or a nice, decent dessert or just relaxation, just peace and quietness. It just wasn't my outlet, but I dare not to look down on people that has done that because everybody's story is totally different. I've had counselors to tell me, from all that you've been through in your life, I cannot believe you have never done drugs or alcohol. And I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult. I'm still thinking about it. But I didn't. You know why? Because I just believe that God is faithful. I know God is faithful. He got me through my CPS case, y'all. I'm telling you, if he didn't give me the strength to endure all that stuff they take you through, but truth be told, I do believe they take you through it to try to break you down. Because most people cannot take that kind of pressure. Not knowing where your kids are, or even if you're 10 minutes late to your visit, you can't see your kids, or, it's a whole new world. I was thinking to myself this morning after I finished praying, I said, God, I don't see how this is legal. Everybody make mistakes. Everybody that's a human being. I know no one that's perfect but Jesus. So who gives people the right to say you can't have your kids anymore? And I'm not saying, and let me put in this disclaimer. Now, if you are abusing your kids or you are hurting your kids and your kids are definitely being harmed by you, I understand the reason why CPS will step in and say, hey, this is enough. We're going to intervene and we're going to do what's best for the children. I totally understand that. But if you are a mom or a dad or a grandparent or a caregiver and you might have made a mistake, in some kind of way? Why not implement the necessary resources and services to help these parents to be better versus uprooting and removing these children and placing them in a home of God knows who, God knows where, and knowing what's really being done to these children? Like my last guest shared, her child was being treated as if he was born as a boy, but they made him dress up and act like a little girl. And they didn't treat him how he should have been treated. And they never did anything about it when he was in the foster care home. CPS would not do anything. And since they treated their parents so badly, she was scared to speak up to say, hey, my kids are not being treated correctly, because she thought CPS was going to retaliate on her. And I can understand that. All CPS caseworkers are not good. How do I know? Because I had a bad caseworker. I did. If it wasn't for the grace of God, God sending the right people in my life, I call them rams in a bush, to say, hey, she is not treating you how you deserve to be treated. I remember getting random phone calls, almost threats telling me if I didn't do something, that it's almost like she was going to retaliate. And a person that's into this CPS case that don't know what all this entails, you do become frightful, because your biggest emphasis, like mine was getting your children out of this system. And you don't want to do nothing that's going to cause that to be delayed or denied. And a lot of caseworkers that's not operating out of integrity, they will also use that against you. They know you're probably scared. They know you don't know what to expect. So they play games. They even lie. I've seen all sides of the spectrum. And again, let me also give this disclaimer. All CPS caseworkers are not bad. There are some good CPS caseworkers. I've personally spoken to one that is a friend, and I asked her, and she came on the show and she shared herself. I say, how could you do a job that hurts families, that keep children away from or they take children away from their parents? And you know what she shared with me? Trika, there has to be a light in darkness. If everybody is bad, how could somebody ever be the good that's needed to help the families and kids that needs help the right way? And you know, until she said that, I used to think differently. But after she said that, I said, that's right. There has to be light and darkness. And we will begin to conversate more and more and share and exchange our differences. Or, you know, you don't always have to agree. You can agree to disagree. But the moral of the story is there are more people that's needed to help these children. These children can't help themselves. Since I've done this show, I've had people, like I said just now, that reach out to me and say, I don't know what to do. Like that grandmother, I told her, continue to be that advocate for that child. Thank God she took that child in, you know, and it hasn't been easy for her. But like I share with her, you have no idea how much, even if you don't see it right now, that child will grow up to be with their family versus with a foster family who they don't even know, who you don't even know if they're even treating that child good or not. Statistics normally show a child is much better off with their own family and friends versus being placed in foster care. The long-term effects from being placed in the foster care, sadly, the rest of their life will live out to show those negative effects. Normally, for example, and I'm going to share this story because this is something I also witnessed, a person that was molested in the foster care system. They grew up to have a family of their own, husband and wife, great job, benefits, children. And guess what? They never was fully healed from what they experienced by being raped in that foster care system. That because of that, all the things they gained as far as a marriage, a home, children, a great job with benefits, guess what? That one encounter And I won't say it was the only encounter, but since they never got healed from being a victim of CPS, they ended up repeating that same offense and end up dealing with child molestation that they all became a contributor to. So that's how serious this is. Don't think that this is only temporarily. If you don't take that child in, that can affect that child the rest of their lives. And not only would it affect that child, it's going to affect you as well, because you can have the remorse. What if I would have just took some time and brought that child into my house? Showed that child some attention to help that mother and that father or those grandparents. What if that was just it? Just think about it. So I just want to bring to the airways today that anybody you know that's dealing with CPS, you have no idea the weight that is on that child, on that parent and child. And if there's anything you can do, for heaven's sakes, I would definitely recommend you step in and become involved, because that child's future is in stake if you don't. It is too much harm that goes on when those children are not placed with their family. And again, statistics show a child or children are normally better off if they are able to stay with family or friends. Like I said, I had family that was willing to step in for my child. You know what? CPS didn't want them. They didn't. They didn't. So because of temporarily, my child had to be misplaced. And I've never shared this with anyone. And just imagine a parent that is forced to go through something like this, and you have family that's there to support you, and you know that your children will be in a good place with, and CPS still won't put them in that with that family. And from my understanding, if you have family there that's willing to help you with the children, they pass the test, the background checks, they're supposed to place those children with that family. That's not always the case. So that's why it's important that you speak up. I didn't stop. When I seen what was happening, I would go up to that CPS location. I would speak to the supervisors. I didn't stop. I didn't quit. I didn't give up until why? Because I wanted my child back home where he belongs. And that's where he's at to this day. Speak up when it comes to your children. Do not be a victim of someone just, mishandling you because they feel they have so much power over you that you won't say anything. Your children is your legacy. Your children, the children are the future. And what we do matters. These are your children. And you have every right as their biological mother, as their grandparents, or whatever the case may be, you speaking up for your children. They need us. Sometimes we are their only mouth and hands and feet when they're in these systems. And I'm telling you, I have heard stories that has broken my heart in two. That's why I care so much about coming on here and sharing my true story. I do believe if enough stories are heard, that prayerfully one day, someone in these laws, in these Congress, in this government, whomever in these higher positions will say, you know what? Enough is enough. We need to make sure that integrity is in place, that CPS are following these laws. They are doing what they're supposed to do. These foster families, when these children are having to be brought in these homes, that they are doing what they're supposed to do. And if not, there will be consequences in place. We have to hold these people that is not doing right in CPS, in the government, in these foster homes, and whoever else is affiliated. If they're not doing their job, they need to be held accountable. Period. I have so much passion because it's personal for me. I know what I see, and you can't unsee what you've seen. I don't care how bad, how hard you try. Even to this day, nearly 7 years later, My child will say, if the least little thing come about, I don't want to be separated from my family. I don't want to be, taken away from my family again. I don't want CPS to come back in my life again. Nearly 7 years later, he can't forget the ants that was biting him in the bed and the dark shadows he would see behind the door at night. He can't unhear that. You can't unexperience what you've been through. You can hopefully just learn from it and prayerfully not ever repeat that same situation again. So again, I just want to come on here today to encourage you to not give up on your children. Anyone that is in your family that's watching, that maybe you're not personally going through a CPS case, but you know someone that is, that just got a new investigation or, a new case, and, you want to help, but you don't know quite how to help. I've had family on, my uncle and his wife, to share with you. Patricia gave us some great advice. Help. Because this could be the trajectory that affects the rest of your grandchildren's life by you not helping. So why not do something now? Why put off something now that you can do that can actually change your child or not only your kids, but your grandkids for the better? See, they don't know all they're going to go through. But the people in this story that have been through it, we do. Our kids do. And we're a living testimony that CPS is not what you want. You want to avoid it at all costs. That's why I say, if you don't have an attorney, a good attorney, get someone like Attorney Vince. If you can't get Attorney Vince, find someone that knows CPS laws, that's aggressive, that want to fight for you and your children and reuniting you and your family back together, you and your kids back together. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Like I shared before, that same caseworker who wasn't a good caseworker, she told me, "Won't you go on with your life? You don't have any more kids now." Who in their right mind will be okay with going on with their life without knowing where their children are? Even if they slept last night, have they eaten? What real mom, what real father, what real parent would not care about their children like that, who loves their children? So that's what I'm saying. From that experience, it showed me that they want you to give up, but don't fall into their traps. Keep going. Go to your services. Do your drug test. Like I said, I've never done drugs, in my entire life. I did every drug test, y'all. Why? Because if I've never done drugs, I don't have nothing to hide. Anything is going to prove you wrong even more. Now, again, if your attorneys tell you don't take the drug test, don't take the drug test. That's why I tell you to seek wise counsel, because they are legally accredited to know how to handle your case prayerfully. If you have someone like Attorney Vince, or attorney who knows CPS laws, do your homework, do your research, call, talk, ask around. This is a serious matter. Like I heard Attorney Vince tell someone on his show, this lawsuit is probably one of the biggest lawsuits you will ever have in your entire life. Why? Because it's going to determine if you're going to keep your kids or not. So that is one of the largest, if not the Lord, I want to say it is. This is your family. These are your children. And you should do whatever it takes, following legal counsel recommendations and what they are advising you to do. This is serious, y'all. I wouldn't be on here, talking to you if it wasn't. Again, what got me through was my faith in God, me having an aggressive attorney that knows CPS laws, and me willing to get me out the way, because this is not about you anymore. This is about getting your children back. My attorney told me, I never will forget. She say, "Trika, this is not about you or your kids." And at the time, I didn't understand, like, why would you say that? Because we're the one that's dealing with this right now. She say, this is so far bigger than what you can ever expect. It's not just that. You're dealing with politics, you're dealing with money, you're dealing with power. Three large giants is what you're dealing with now. So that's why a lot of times when you know that you're doing everything you know to do and things are still not working or not progressing, or the case is being extended out, or you're not able to get the visits, or your caseworker's not returning your phone call, trust me, this is a world that's way bigger. You're dealing with stuff that's way bigger than your eyes can see. I see why that attorney refers CPS as a black hole, because it's a black hole. It really is, because there's so many things that it entails that you can't even see. So I never gave my caseworker not one reason to say, oh, well, she's not doing her visits. Oh, she never passed her drug test. Oh, she's not, whatever the plans are that they have for you to do, the services, the classes, or whatever they have for you to do. She could not ever say that. She could have never said that because it wasn't true. I'm not giving nobody that already has something against me. I'm not giving them something that's credible that they could really have against me. I'm not playing into their hands. I'm not. I wouldn't. So I just want to come on here today to hopefully encourage you and to inspire you to keep going. Don't put a period where there should be a comma. Even though right now this might not be ideal what you're going through, and it's not. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it was easy. It was a piece of cake. Just go through it. I would be lying if I said that. It's going to take you to honestly have to push you out the way and say, you know what? The bigger picture is bringing my children back home and doing everything I can within my power to make sure that's done. Along with having legal wise counsel that knows CPS laws, and also just getting yourself together so they can come back home. And most importantly, with all that being said, building a relationship with God, go to him when you're disgusted or down or sad or depressed. Cry out to God because he hears you. He heard me. And I am a living witness. Every time I went through something that I didn't understand with CPS, I cried out to God for strength and for help. And when I assure you, that's exactly what he did, and why I was able to write a book about my story. Because I've always said, Jesus, Daddy, my story, this story will be for your glory. And guess what, y'all? That is exactly what it has been. So I'm going to end on that note. To keep God first, keep fighting for your children. Don't never give up. I don't care what they do or say. Just know they're there for CPS. You're there to get your kids back. Just remember that. And get legal wise counsel that knows CPS laws. And do self-care for you. Strengthen yourself as you're going through this journey. Tough times may not last always, but guess what? Tough people do. So stay encouraged. Don't give up. Any grandparents, any family members or friends that can take on these children while these families are getting a CPS situation going, getting things resolved, take those babies in if you can. You don't want them in that foster care system. That is not what you want. It would be a lifelong, everlasting effect that you don't want to gamble your grandchildren or your children or whomever your friends' children with. Don't do it. If you could take those kids in, bring them in. They'll be better off. Statistics shows that. Children are better with their family and friends, just like you would be. So again, I am your host, Latrika Jones. I hope this is some helpful information for you. Keep God first, and you have a blessed, great weekend.